The Minister of Sport, Pascale St-Onge, is with me now. Minister St-Onge, thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
I have to start off, you have spoken at length now about the desire that you have to see pressure upped on the organization, to see some sort of shift in leadership. For example, I don't know if anything talks more than money. And in this case, Tim Hortons has announced just recently, just minutes ago, that it is suspending funding. It's pulling all out of all men's hockey programming for the 2022-23 season, including the Men's World Junior Championships, with which Canadians from coast to coast are very, very familiar with. What is your reaction to that decision from Tim Hortons?
Well, I think it's very consistent with what I've heard throughout the summer and the previous weeks about how disappointed the parents across the country and the Canadian population is with Hockey Canada. And its lack of acknowledgement of the seriousness of the situation that they're in because of their mismanagement of extremely serious sexual allegations.
Would you characterize yesterday's testimony from the interim chair of the board, Andrea Skinner, as not adequately acknowledging what has happened?
Oh, absolutely. We're witnessing an organization that seems to be more interested in protecting themselves and their jobs than protecting the public, the women, and the players in their own organization. And that's why if the leaders are not stepping down, as everybody is asking them, that's why it's time for the 13 voting members to show them the door.
And I want to ask you more about the provinces and their role and the members, as you refer to them, in a second. Do you think, though, after what you heard and saw yesterday, that Andrea Skinner should occupy the position she does?
I think that there needs to be new experts and new people that come in the organization to create a real culture change, especially in regards to sexual violence, because these are not the first occurrence. The stories that we've heard from 2003 and 2018, there's the Sheldon Kennedy story. It's been ongoing for years, this discussion. Hockey Canada has made a lot of promises over the years that they have not lived up to. So now it's time to bring in the experts and bring in new brains and new people to implement that change and make sure that players are properly supported, that they have the right tools, the education, and that prevention is ongoing from now on, that there needs to be more prevention and discussions about sexual violence and consent.
And I certainly take that point. And I understand what you're saying more generally, but on the specifics, and I'm asking specifically about Ms. Skinner because of the way in which she characterized all of this as basically a media smear job. Much of this is a media smear job. Do you think someone who characterizes what's going on like that should occupy the position she does?
I think that she has a misunderstanding of the problematic. It's not a communication or a public relation problem that Hockey Canada has. It's a toxic masculinity culture. It's sexual violence that has been ongoing for years. There's a problem of discrimination also in Hockey Canada. And unfortunately, I don't believe that she is right when she's saying that stability is what Hockey Canada needs. It has been stable for decades, and it hasn't changed for decades, and now it needs change. So
should she and Scott Smith both be out?
I think that she, unfortunately, she came in only in 2020. So a lot of what happened in Hockey Canada is she's not responsible or was not there. And quite frankly, I feel a little bit saddened that it's a woman that's wearing right now that is the face of the boys club problem at Hockey Canada. She came in 2020. I think she's a scapegoat. I think she has a misunderstanding of the situation that Hockey Canada is in. But one thing for sure, there needs to be new blood.
Sorry, I just missed the last part of what you said. I just want to be clear, though, for Canadians watching, and I do take all the points that you've just made. I understand that you're highlighting the problems that exist, but you haven't directly answered the question about whether those two individuals should be in the leadership positions they occupy. Would you like to see them gone?
Well, yeah, because there's a misunderstanding of the nature of the problem. It's not a communications problem. It's a cultural problem, and there's a problem about sexual violence in hockey, and that is a problem that needs to be tackled. So because these individuals are not understanding the nature of the problem, I don't think that they're the right people to implement the change that hockey needs.
Minister, you have spoken, and this is not to take away from what you're saying tonight and the condemnation that you have certainly expressed on multiple occasions recently towards what's gone on and the conduct of Hockey Canada. But you yourself just spoke about the years in which these problems have persisted for and the lack of action when it came to Hockey Canada. Your government did, until June of this year, substantially fund that organization. There was testimony earlier this year from officials, not when you were minister, but officials in your department who knew, who was aware about the sexual assault allegations involving the 2018 members of the Canada World Junior team, and that nothing was followed up on for years after. How much regret does your government have for not digging deeper, for not seizing the issue earlier? I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying, based on the testimony we've heard, there was obviously a lack of communication or a lack of emphasis put on this issue by even officials in your department and thereby your government too. And do you regret that?
Well, there's lots to say about this. The first thing that I want people to know is that we are making change right now in the funding system. It was announced a few months ago that we were going to do that work, and it consists of two things. The first thing is to review the contractual agreements between Sport Canada and the nationally funded organization so that there are clearer rules about governance, transparency, and prevention of abuse, maltreatment of all kinds. The other thing that we're going to do is review how Sport Canada can actually assess whether or not these organizations are living up to the expectations that we're setting for them. So we're bringing in new expertise, and we are going to review how the assessment is made. Right now, it's based on self-regulation and self-assessment. It needs to be processed otherwise, and that's what we're working on. So I am acknowledging that our response was insufficient so far, and that we need to make change. But there is one thing that I would like to add, and it's that the allegation that Sport Canada knew about in 2018 was that there had been a sexual incident and that Hockey Canada had contacted local police and a third-party investigation. So, and like everybody else, we all learned in May 2022 only that there had been, that the incident was actually an alleged gang rape and that it was settled out of court.
But my question is then, and thank you for acknowledging that it was insufficient, and I do acknowledge all the measures your government is taking now. But my question is, why did it take so long for your government to find that out? Why aren't there mechanisms in place to follow up on it, especially when you know that you are funding that organization in subsequent years? Why didn't anyone ask the question, what happened with that case? What happened with those victims?
Well, the process needs to be reviewed, that's for sure. And also, there's a lot of conversation right now over abuse in sport and maltreatment. It's an evolving discussion, and that's why we are putting in place a lot of new tools to make sure that athletes receive the services that they deserve whenever they're facing abuse and maltreatment. That's why last June we have created the Office of the Sport Integrity Commissioner, so that individual complaints, but also cultural assessment of such problems in sport can be also investigated, and not by a third party hired by the federations, but by a really independent mechanism. So I know that we need to do more, and we're working on it every day.
Minister St-Onge, thank you very much for your time. I'm out of time, but I appreciate yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.